you're calling this like the unified measurement framework, where you're advocating for like multimodal or like unified measurement approach. What does that mean for you exactly? Like, what does that look in practice? And what do we do with that information if a bunch of these different methods are all pointing at different solutions? Like MMM is telling me that this thing is really good, and then causal AI is telling me that that thing is actually really bad, but this thing is really good. Like, what do we do with all that information?
Yeah. So when it comes to marketing optimization, right, we are trying to make decisions at different levels, right? So certain decisions are very strategic. So you are thinking a few quarters down the line. Certain decisions are very tactical. You're worried about this month and the next. And certain decisions are very operational, right? You are worried about today, tomorrow, this week, next week, right? So for each level of this decisioning, you need different capabilities. So that's why all these different techniques are very important, right? So you can't use MMM to decide whether you should scale up or scale down a creative today, right? And that level of operational decisioning is becoming more important by the time, because today marketers can create many different creative variations very easily, right?
Yeah.
So if your incrementality testing says Facebook prospecting can be scaled up, then the question is, okay, I've got this 20, 30 creatives. How do I manage my budget within these creatives? So for some of these decisioning, you would need multi-touch attribution, right? So though we have spoken against multi-touch attribution, this is perhaps one use case. So we are not
Uh,
saying that multi-touch attribution is like absolutely of no utility.
mhm.
But there are some of these use cases whereby you could make your operational decisions based on touch-based attribution, but the scope is very limited. So when we talk about unified marketing measurements approach, uh, we are sort of bringing all these techniques and we are enabling seamless orchestration between each of them. The most important thing that gets missed out in this discussion is there is a layer of abstraction on top of all of this. So when a marketer visits a unified marketing measurement system, though we talk about how robust our modeling is, how we design experiments and all of that, finally what a marketer see is a neat planning tool, not even a dashboard. A planning
Mm.
tool to which you could ask certain questions, right? You could say that how could I drive my revenue up to X dollars next quarter? I've got Y dollars to spend. What is the right mix?
Mhm.
What would happen if I add extra affiliate partners? What would happen if I change the price? So, one major criticism is that this creates analysis paralysis, right? You have got a lot
Mm.
of reports and all of that. But the point that a lot of people misses, these are specific details. Finally, what a marketer sees is a planning tool, right? Now, if the marketer is really interested in knowing how the modeling works, how robust it is, how do you model for ad stock, how do you model for saturation, and a bunch of different things, how do you forecast? Of course, we could get into the more specific statistical approaches that sort of covers everything. But unified measurement is primarily an action driven system, right? So analysis paralysis could happen in any framework. So there's this very popular book that has sort of influenced me quite a bit. So this book is called Decision Driven Analytics. It was written by a Wharton professor called Stefano Pantoni, right? So what it says is you start by thinking about the decision that you want to make, and then use the data to see if it supports within what confidence range, right? So if you think that you want to change your price, approach analytics with that decision in mind. So it's not that you see a lot of dashboards and then you're lost in it, right?
Hmm.
So from that perspective, one thing, this is an absolute necessity, right? You cannot make strategic decisions from attribution. You cannot make operational decisions from MMM, right? And also you can't test everything. Though we are all for experimentation culture, for most of the brand, it's an overhead, right? So you should be testing what absolutely needs testing, right? So this multi-model approach. So we only very recently we started calling this unified marketing measurement, but even in early 2023 we had this multi-modeling approach, right, where we had attribution, we had incrementality test, everything in one platform. So this is a necessity, but it's very important that unified measurement vendors like us also primarily enables actioning for the marketers,
Hmm.
right? Where everything else is abstracted away, but making sure that everything is transparent as well. So every assumption that has gone into your model building has to be transparent, should be open for scrutiny. Your algorithms should be transparent. How do you forecast should be transparent. Documentation should be there. So it shouldn't be the case that we just take the customer data, create a model, and just plug some insights in the UI, right? The
Hmm.
process of creating a model should happen in the platform. So that's when UMM become transformational. Otherwise, it's just a BI tool.
Right. Yeah, no, it's super interesting the way that you're talking about this in the sense that a lot of folks think of measurement as this like retrospective tool to look at like what worked and what drove revenue. You're trying to like spin that in measurement should be in this unified framework, a forward thinking tool and helping you figure out business decisions and what to do next, focusing on actions. What like how do you handle customers that come to you and they're just like, we want to use LifeSite to figure out like our business question is where do we invest more dollars in? We want to know what is working, what is driving revenue so that I can cut the shit that isn't working and I can double down on the stuff that is working. That's my business decision. All of these different ways of measuring what is working, what is not working to inform that decision. You're saying that like there are drawbacks to all of these methods, but there are specific spots that are operational for and better tuned for certain methods and things that are better tuned for. Is that the right way to think about it? How do you think about that?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So I'll perhaps take a very precise example, right?
Yeah.
Let's say there is this one particular brand who has their own direct-to-consumer website in Shopify, and say they also sell products in Amazon, right? So you've got two sales channels. Now you've got a bunch of factors that is driving your direct-to-consumer revenue. So this is the price of your product, all your paid media activities, your own media, right, which is your email, your SMS, and things like that. And perhaps you're earning a lot of discounts and promotion in your Shopify website, right? So you've got a bunch of factors. Now in Amazon, perhaps you have got your Amazon ads that you would see when you go to the Amazon website, or perhaps you would also have the Amazon ad displayed across the internet in different other Amazon network publishers, which would redirect back to the Amazon. So in these cases, what we would do is we will create a model explaining your D2C revenue. We'll create a model explaining your Amazon revenue. But in these cases, there are a lot of interaction that could possibly happen between this. Your spend that is primarily meant to drive your D2C traffic or D2C conversion could create some halo effect on Amazon as well, right? People might also go and search the product in Amazon after seeing a Facebook ad. Vice versa
Mhm.
is also possible. So we create two models by applying absolute modeling rigor at each level. And once we get good models, we can easily merge this model and create a master model, which is for your revenue forecast, right? Overall revenue forecast. So you could do forecast and optimization for Amazon. You could do forecast and optimization for D2C, or you could do forecast and optimization for your overall revenue. So this is the starting point. This entire process is just a few days away for any brand in most of the cases. Once this is done, the insight, besides the insight, right, there will be a bunch of things that you could get out of this. Most important thing is that we should also raise a few warnings, right? If we see that your Facebook prospecting and Google top of the funnel are very highly correlated, then model would always struggle to actually distinguish one from the other, right? That's a modeling reality. So it's very important that we flag this to the user, right? Though we have got some reads, we are not very confident about, say, Google top of the funnel because it is highly correlated with Facebook, right? If there are affiliate variables, MMM model mostly struggles with affiliate variable because there are many different affiliate business models, right? So in one of the business model, you end up paying a commission to an affiliate partner after the sales has happened. So here the spend happens after the revenue, right? Which is opposite to the MMM assumption, which is you first have an investment or spend and then you get a revenue. So in affiliate, so there are cases where we should raise a few warnings. So these warnings are hypotheses, right? So we are essentially telling you that for those variables, before you make any decision, you should ideally be testing. But having said that, there are a lot of other variables which are already well understood. So you can start scaling up or scaling them down with a very high degree of certainty and confidence. But some of the other variables needs testing. And testing from the modeling perspective is an extremely important part, because what testing also provides you is a process called calibration, right? So calibration is whereby we have understood a particular coefficient with a very high degree of confidence. Now we can tell the model that when the model try to find the coefficient by its own methods, you try to minimize the distance between model generated coefficient and the experiment generated coefficient for that period for which the test has happened.
Mm.
So there's a process called calibration, right? And that improves. So even if you could calibrate just one variable, it could it could improve the modeling accuracy across the spectrum for everything. So that's what makes experiment a more important thing. It in itself could enable a lot of decisioning, but once it comes back to the model through this iterative process of model calibration, that improves the entire measurement framework, right? So this is one part of your triangle, right, where MMM and experiment sort of talks to each other. Then you have attribution as well, right, where the biggest problem with attribution is this duplication problem, right? So when you get a revenue, all your ad platforms is taking credit for that. So finally, your attributed revenue is 20% more than your actual revenue. So when you bring attribution to this thing, you need attribution for this operational decisioning, right? But at the same time, we could calibrate attribution also from certain multipliers that we could generate from the MMM and experiment side. So the major controversy associated with this process is that it's not scientific, right? That getting this multiplier from MMM and applying that to attribution number is not very scientific. I agree to that in some extent. But what we're essentially doing is we have gotten, so the reads that you get from MMM is an average read. Yeah? We are trying to understand the average impact of Facebook. So that average number we are percolating down to your more granular numbers like ad set, ad ID, creative, and all of that. So that way it has its utility, and it can do deduplication of your attribution numbers as well. So that's how the system works, right? Where each of these methods complement the other, and overall you have a better program, right? A marketing program or marketing orchestration between all of these things. And most importantly, you have system to make strategic decisions, tactical decisions, and operational decisions, right?